Wyoming Territory, late spring of 1887, the wind carried the smell of cut hay and storm-wet cedar when Wade Foster stepped off the porch wearing her mama's faded blue dress, the one with the tiny white flowers and the mended hem. Marshal Merritt Tabor had not expected the breath to leave his chest like that. He had seen gunfights in Kansas rail towns, watched men bleed out in the dust, but nothing ever hit him like this. Wade stood in the doorway, hands pressed against her sides like she was holding herself steady. Her cheeks were flushed from sun and something else. She had not worn that dress in years, not since the day her mama was buried under the cottonwood tree behind the house. "You look like the rest of my life," Merritt said, the words out of his mouth before he even thought them. She blinked. Then, slowly, one corner of her mouth lifted just a little. "You still got away with words," she said. "I meant it." He stepped forward, boots quiet on the porch boards. "And it is not just the dress, it is you." "All of you?" She looked down like she was trying not to let him see her eyes filling up. "I did not put this on for you." "I know," he said gently. "That is why it matters." She stepped aside and let him in. The house was quiet except for the soft clink of wind chimes out back and the ticking clock on the wall. Two small voices drifted in from the loft upstairs, her boys, Micah and Miles, whispering about something they were building with sticks and string. "They never met their father," she said, voice low. "He left before Micah could walk. Miles was still nursing." Merritt nodded. He had known that part. The ranch hands talked. "I do not want pity," she added quickly. "You will never get that from me." She looked at him, really looked. "Then what are you doing here, Marshal?" He took off his hat and held it in both hands. "There is trouble coming. A man rode into town this morning asking about you, said he was kin to your husband, claimed he had rights." Her jaw tightened. "He does not." "There is nothing left for him to claim." "I figured as much, but he had that look, the kind of man who does not take no easy." "I can handle him." "I do not doubt it, but you should not have to." She turned away, fiddled with the kettle on the stove even though it was not hot. "You got a woman, Merritt?" "No. Why not?" He hesitated, then said quietly, "Because the only one I ever wanted was already carrying another man's child." Her hand froze on the kettle handle. "I was 20 when I left for Dodge," he went on. "You were 16. I thought I was doing the right thing, giving you space, letting you choose. You never wrote. I did, 3 times, sent them from Kansas. I never got a reply. I never got them." Neither spoke for a long moment. Then Wade said, "Merritt, I do not know what you want from me. I want to help you, that is all, no strings." Her eyes narrowed. "You rode all this way just to help." "No, I was headed here anyway. They made me marshal last month. Sweet Clover and the outlying ranches fall under my watch now." She exhaled, some of the tension leaving her shoulders. "Let me stay a few days," he said, "until we know if that man comes back." She nodded once. "You can use the barn loft. I will bring you something to eat later." And with that, she turned and walked upstairs, her boys' voices rising in excitement as she reached them. Merritt stepped outside and leaned against the porch post, hat back on his head, watching the clouds roll in. It was not just about protection. He had not been lying when he said she looked like the rest of his life. He just did not know if she wanted him in hers. The next morning, Merritt was already splitting wood when the sun came up. Micah, 8 years old and wiry, came out first, dragging a stick almost as long as he was tall. "You the man Mama says is sleeping in the barn." "I am," Merritt said. "Can you shoot?" "Better than most." "Can you ride fast?" "Fast enough." Micah squinted at him. "You gonna marry her?" "Micah," Wade's voice cut across the yard as she stepped out with a tin cup in hand. "That is not your business." The boy grinned and ran off toward the creek. Wade handed Merritt the coffee. "He asks a lot of questions." "He is smart." She did not answer, just watched the trees like she was expecting something to come through them. 2 days passed without trouble. Merritt stayed busy fixing the back fence and mending a broken gate. At night he slept in the loft, listening to the wind and the occasional owl. On the 3rd day, the man came. He rode in slow, a tall man with mean eyes and a long scar down his left cheek. Wade saw him first. She stepped down from the porch, arms crossed, boys safe inside. "Clyde," she said flatly. "Wade." He tipped his hat without smiling. Heard you got yourself a nice spread here. Miles and Micah are mine, you got no claim. He looked past her like he owned the place already. Their daddy was my brother, blood makes them mine too. No, it does not. Merritt stepped out from the side of the house, rifle slung over one shoulder. You heard the lady. Clyde's hand hovered near his belt. And you are Marshal Tabor. Clyde spat in the dirt. Sweet Clover's got herself a lawman now. Feels like good timing. Clyde gave a long, slow smile. We will see about that. He turned his horse and rode off, but Wade knew he would be back. That night, when the boys were asleep, Merritt stood with Wade on the back porch, lantern light painting soft shadows across her face. I will stay as long as you need me, he said. She looked up at him. And if I need you longer than that, then I will stay as long as you will have me. The silence stretched between them, warm and full of old memory. I never stopped caring, she said finally, voice low, even after everything. Even when I thought you forgot me, I never forgot. She stepped closer, her hand found his. I am scared, she whispered. He wrapped both arms around her. I am not. And for the first time in a long while, Wade let herself rest against someone else. Tomorrow might bring trouble. But tonight she was home. Rain had come in the night, soft and steady, soaking the soil until it smelled of root and stone. By morning, the clouds had broken open to reveal blue sky in long strips above the hills, and the horses stood with their coats darkened, steam curling from their backs. Wade was already outside, her boots sunk deep in wet earth, when Merritt carried the saddle from the barn. She didn't speak, just handed him a strip of jerky and pointed toward the rise beyond the east pasture. Tracks, she said. He followed her up the incline, boots slick in the mud. She crouched near a patch where the grass had been flattened. One hoofprint, sharp-edged and fresh, pointed westward. Whoever it was, she said, they circled the house before dawn. Didn't come close enough for the dogs to bark. Same horse as before? No, she said, brushing back a strand of hair that had come loose from her braid. Smaller, younger, might be someone watching for Clyde. Merritt studied the ridge. If he's got men with him, we need to know how many. Wade stood slowly. I can ride out later. There's a crow's nest of rock above the canyon trail. I'll see what I see. I'll go, he said. You stay here with the boys. She didn't wait for argument. By the time he caught up, she'd already saddled her gelding and packed a rifle across her back. She swung up with practiced ease and turned once in the stirrups. If I'm not back by dusk, light the lantern in the window. Merritt watched her ride out, the sun catching the wet hem of her coat, and something hard and helpless turned over in his chest. He'd seen her calm under pressure, but this was different. She moved with the kind of certainty that came from surviving too much alone. Back at the house, the boys were stacking kindling near the stove. Merritt kept busy hauling water and checking the latch on the chicken coop, but his eyes kept drifting toward the ridge. The day passed slowly, heavy with the kind of silence that comes before something breaks. When dusk finally leaned in, he lit the lantern. Wade returned just after nightfall, her horse lathered and breathing hard. She slid off stiffly and didn't speak until the animal was rubbed down and turned loose. There's a camp 6 miles out, she said, voice low. 3 men, Clyde's not with them yet, but they're waiting for him. Merritt crossed his arms. How long before he comes back? Soon. She met his eyes in the lantern light. They've got rifles, and they're short on patience, he nodded once. Then we don't wait. They sat on the porch while the boys slept upstairs, a pot of coffee between them and the sound of crickets rising in waves. Wade's hair was still damp from the ride, loose now, the braid unraveled. I was 16 when I stopped trusting anyone, she said. Even my own kin. Merritt didn't interrupt. My father sold off the last of the cattle before he died, left us with nothing but debt and dry land. Mama took in washing until her back gave out. There wasn't a single man who offered help without wanting something back. He looked at her, the lines of her face drawn tight and tired. I don't want anything from you, he said. You know that, she gave a short breath. You want me, Merritt. That's not the same as asking for something, but it's still a wanting. He didn't deny it. I haven't had gentleness in this house for years, she said. Not since Mama passed. The boys don't remember it at all. He reached over, took her hand, slow and careful. Her fingers didn't pull away. "I'm not soft," she said. "I don't need soft," he said. "I need real." She looked at their hands, hers roughened by years of work, his scarred across the knuckles. No words passed between them for a long while. Then she said, "If we stand together, it has to be all the way." It already is. She leaned her head against his shoulder, and he felt her exhale, not like someone giving up, but like someone letting go. The wind shifted, cooler now, and somewhere out in the dark, a coyote called. Merritt didn't move, didn't speak. He just let her rest against him, and in the quiet, something settled between them like a promise. By the time the sun rose again, Wade had already wrapped one saddlebag with cartridges and salt pork. She tied her hair back with a strip of old muslin and didn't glance toward the barn where Merritt was rubbing down his mare. Her hands moved quick, certain. She didn't ask his opinion before laying out the plan. "They'll come from the canyon mouth," she said, pulling the oilcloth tighter around the rifle stock. "It's the only way in with trees thick enough to hide 3 riders." Merritt nodded once, then unsaddled his mare and let her pasture. "What's on your mind? You take the boys to Clara's place." She didn't look up. "She's got room in the cellar and she'll keep them quiet." "I'm not leaving you out here with gun hands on the way." "You're not." She stood, brushed the dust from her knees. "You'll come back once they're safe." "But I'm not risking them." Merritt didn't argue. He knew Wade didn't ask for help. She gave orders when the stakes were high. It was how she'd survived this long. He trusted her judgment, even when it put something sharp in his chest. Micah and Miles were still eating when Merritt ducked into the kitchen. Wade bent down beside them, her voice even. "You're going to stay with Miss Clara for a couple nights, just until the cattle finish calving." Micah looked up. "But they already—" "Don't sass me," she said, but her tone wasn't rough. "You'll be good for her and you'll listen." The ride to Clara's place took most of the morning. Merritt didn't say much, and the boys didn't press him. They seemed to sense something was shifting. When he returned, the clouds had thickened again, low and heavy with the scent of more rain. Wade had cleared the front room, pushed the table against the wall. 2 lanterns hung from nails along the frame, trimmed and filled. A second rifle leaned beside the stove. Merritt stepped inside and closed the door behind him. "I left word with Clara. She'll send a runner if anything turns." Wade poured a measure of coffee into a tin cup and passed it to him. "We've got maybe until dusk. Then we use the light while we've got it." They spent the next hour stringing wire across the fence line, rigging a trip to alert them if anyone came through low. Wade moved with the focus of someone who didn't waste motion. Merritt watched her hands just as often as he watched the tree line. She caught him once, eyes narrowing slightly. "Something on your mind." "Plenty," he said. "You always this calm when men are coming to kill you." She pulled a coil of wire through her fingers. "No." "But I've had worse odds." "That doesn't make it easier." "No," she said, straightening, "but it keeps me from shaking." They stood in the field, wind curling through the grass, neither speaking for a while. "You ever think about leaving Wyoming?" Merritt asked, his gaze on the far hills. "Only once." "When?" "3 winters ago. The snow came early and stayed. Miles was sick near a month. I had to burn the last of the fence rails to keep the stove going." She looked down at her hands. "I wrote a letter to a boarding house in Cheyenne." "Never sent it. What changed your mind?" I saw Micah trying to read Mama's Bible out loud to his brother. He didn't know half the words, but he tried. She paused. "I figured if he could believe in something, so could I." Merritt reached over then, slow and quiet, and touched her fingers. "You said once you stopped trusting people at 16. What would it take to start again?" She didn't pull away. "Someone who doesn't flinch when things get ugly." Her voice was low. "Someone who doesn't expect me to need saving." "I don't want to save you," he said. "I want to stand beside you." Her eyes flicked to his. The wind stirred the edge of her coat. "Then you'd better hold your ground." The wire sang faintly in the breeze. Somewhere out beyond the trees, a bird called once, then went quiet. They returned to the house together, not speaking, but each step matched the other's without effort. Inside, Wade lit both lanterns and blew out the match with a steady breath. Merritt took down the second rifle and checked the sight. She stood behind him, silent a moment, then said, "If we make it through this, when we do, She tilted her head. When we do, she repeated, you'll stay. He didn't look away. I wasn't planning on leaving. Good, she said, and her voice caught just slightly. The light from the lanterns flickered across the floorboards as the wind picked up, rattling the eaves and bringing the smell of pine smoke from somewhere far off. Merritt moved to the window, eyes scanning the darkening trees. Wade stood beside him, her shoulder brushing his. They waited together for whatever came next. The first shot came just after the last of the light drained from the sky, sharp and dry, echoing off the ridge like a snapped bone. Merritt didn't flinch. He'd been waiting for it, one eye on the tree line, the other on Wade's silhouette near the porch post. She didn't startle either. She shifted her weight and raised the rifle to her shoulder, steady as someone tying a bootlace. They had prepared as much as anyone could. Now it was a matter of holding ground, another shot, closer this time. Then silence. Merritt stepped off the porch and crouched low behind the barrel near the corner of the house. He could make out two shapes moving through the brush, space just wide enough to flank. Smart, not green. Wade's voice came soft but clear. One's aiming for the barn. I've got the right, he said. She didn't answer, but he heard the click of metal as she drew the hammer back. The man on the left broke cover first, fast and low, but not fast enough. Wade fired once. He dropped without a sound, arms folded beneath him like he'd just laid down and changed his mind. A pause. Then the second man retreated, crashing through the underbrush without grace or direction. Merritt let him go. They didn't need bodies piling up if it could be helped. They waited another hour, lanterns doused, rifles ready. Rain started again, light at first, then heavier, soaking the porch planks and rattling soft against the windows. When the quiet held, Merritt finally stepped inside. Wade followed a half-minute later, her boots leaving dark prints across the threshold. He won't come in the rain, she said, laying the rifle on the table with care. He'll wait for clearer light. If he's smart, he won't come at all. He isn't smart. He's mean and patient. Merritt leaned against the wall, arms crossed. That's a dangerous mix. Wade peeled off her coat and hung it near the stove. The fire had burned low but still held enough heat to cut the chill. I used to think there was only one kind of man who stayed, she said, not looking at him. The kind who needed something, a roof, a name, a warm body. He didn't speak, just waited. I watched my sister marry a man like that. She turned then, her face unreadable. He drank the wheat money before the harvest came, left her with nothing but an empty crib and a broken door latch. Merritt pushed off the wall. I'm not that man. I know, she said. But knowing it and letting myself believe it, that's different. He moved to the hearth, picked up a fresh log and set it on the coals. The flame caught slow, painting gold across her cheekbones. You don't owe me trust, he said. But I'll earn it if that's what it takes. She leaned against the table, arms folded, watching the fire. You already have. I just didn't want to say it out loud before. He stepped closer, just enough to feel the heat off her skin. You're not just what I want, he said. You're what I'd stake my name on. She looked up at him then, something soft flickering under her steady gaze. That's a dangerous thing to offer a woman who's been alone too long, maybe. He reached up and brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. But I've never been clearer on anything. Her breath caught once, then steadied. You planning on going back to town? Not without you. Wade tilted her head. And if I said I'd rather stay here, raise those boys on this land, keep the fences mended and the chickens fed, then I'll build the coop bigger and put my badge in the drawer. You do that. I already have, he said. I just haven't told the folks in Sweet Clover yet. For a long moment, she didn't answer. Then she stepped forward, took his hand and laid it flat against her waist where the old dress cinched tight. That first day, she said, when I came to the door wearing this, I didn't wear it for me. His brow furrowed. I wore it because I knew you were on the road, she said. Clara sent word a week before, said the new marshal was you. Merritt's voice dropped. Then why'd you say, because I needed to see if your words were just whined. He let out a slow breath, the kind that carried years behind it. They weren't. No, she said, they weren't. Outside, the rain softened to a hush like the land itself was listening. Wade reached up and touched the edge of his jaw, rough from 3 days without shaving. Stay with me, she said. He leaned down, pressed his forehead to hers. Always. Neither of them kissed the other right away. There was no hurry, no grasping. Just the quiet surety that the long, hard stretch behind them had finally turned toward something whole. When he did kiss her, her hand slid up over his back, anchoring him there like a storm-battered fence post, finally finding stone beneath the mud. They stood in the stillness until the fire burned low again, and the wind shifted east, and the lantern flickered just once before settling back into steady glow. The world outside could wait. The morning after the rain cleared, Wade stepped into the pasture barefoot, dew soaking the hem of a fresh calico dress, her boys still asleep in Clara's cellar. The sun had not yet crested the ridge, but the sky was pale with promise. Merritt stood by the fence line, sleeves rolled high, hammer in hand, finishing the last of the repairs they'd started together. He looked over his shoulder when he heard her steps, the hammer stilled in his grip. "You sleep?" she asked, voice quiet. He nodded, then set the hammer down on the post. Enough." She folded her arms loosely, watching the way he squinted toward the eastern hills. "You think he's gone for good. If he's not, he's thinking twice now. I don't want to look over my shoulder anymore. You won't have to." She walked to him slowly, stopped just shy of touching. "You sure you want to stay here? It's not much. It's everything," he said. Her mouth tilted, not a smile, but something steadier. "Clara's got a preacher cousin comes through Sweet Clover once a month. She trades him eggs for his sermons." "I'll bring the eggs myself," Merritt said. She reached out and brushed a fleck of sawdust from his forearm. "You'll need a ring." "I already whittled one." He pulled it from his pocket, a thin band of polished pine, shaped smooth and pale. "I didn't wait for your answer to start hoping." She slipped it on her finger slowly. "It fits. Then I'll take that as a yes. You're not worried I'll change my mind. I've seen how you hold a rifle. You don't do anything without meaning it." She leaned in then, her forehead resting just beneath his chin, and his arms found their way around her waist like they'd been waiting years for permission. The pasture was quiet but for the distant cluck of hens and the soft huff of horses shifting in the stall. Later, they brought the boys home with a sack of molasses candy and 2 new pairs of boots Clara insisted on gifting. Micah was the first to spot the ring on his mother's hand, and for a long moment he just stared at it. "You said you weren't marrying him," he said. "I said it wasn't your business," Wade corrected. Micah looked at Merritt. "You gonna make us do chores? Only if you want to eat." The boy seemed satisfied with that. Clara came by a week later, bringing a pie and a folded note from the preacher. She stood on the porch a long while, watching Merritt dig post holes with Miles handing him water from a dented tin cup. "He suits you," she said. Wade nodded. "He don't run. That's worth something." The wedding happened under the cottonwood tree where Wade's mother lay buried, the sun casting lacework shadows through the branches. Merritt wore a clean shirt, and Wade wore the same blue dress, mended again at the hem but still holding. The preacher said the words without much ceremony, and the boys stood on either side holding wildflowers and grinning like thieves. Afterward, Merritt built a bench near the tree, just wide enough for 2. That's where they sat most evenings, watching the sky turn to smoke and gold, the boys' shouts echoing from the pasture where they raced sticks and dreams. Wade didn't speak much those nights. She didn't need to. Her hand found Merritt's without asking. His shoulder pressed against hers without weight, and when the wind came up, it carried only the smell of warm grass and wood smoke, not fear. One morning months later, Merritt woke early and found her already outside, hands in the damp earth, planting beans in straight lines. He crouched beside her, brushing dirt from her cheek with his thumb. "You always plant this early?" "No," she said. "But now I've got someone to cook them for." He kissed her then, slow and sure, the kind of kiss that didn't ask for anything but gave everything back. The land stayed hard and the work stayed long, but it was shared now. And in the quiet hours between chores and supper, between growing seasons and sleeping boys, they built something stronger than timber and twine, a life. Together, and they never looked back.